Good afternoon. I'd like to bring the afternoon meeting of council to order. First item on the agenda is to adopt the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Councillor Arneson, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. I call the question. All those in favor? And next item is the adoption of the minutes of the regular afternoon, moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by someone over here. It's Councillor Arneson. Any errors or omissions? I believe Councillor Richter, you had?
No, for the special meeting for budget purposes.
I see. Okay. All right. So all in favor? Carried. Next, we have the adoption of the minutes from the special meeting for budget purposes of January 20. May I have a motion? Councillor Long, seconded by Councillor Whitmarsh. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Richter.
I'm concerned with the terminology in some parts of it because I believe it has the potential to be seen as political and prejudicial. And I would like to have any political or prejudicial wording removed from the minutes of the budget purpose, or on any meeting for budget purposes. So, for example, in the actual minutes itself on page 3, there is commitment to infrastructure and asset management and continued diligence to providing funding levels that support asset maintenance now and into the future, commitment to maintain established service levels, commitment to infrastructure and asset management. But probably the most concerning wording was on page 24 of the handouts that we dealt with last time around. So they talk about commitment to provide, commitment to maintain, and commitment to protect. And I feel that this is prejudicial wording because I can see it being used in the next election against people if they don't vote for the budget. I've seen it used in past elections. If people don't vote for the budget, myself in particular, that I have no commitment to protect. And that is certainly not the case. But when we have actual documents that say commitment to protect, commitment to maintain, commitment to provide, it's presupposing that if we don't do it. No, I'm bringing this up if we...
Okay, Councillor Long, what is your point of order?
We're approving minutes of what happened at the meeting, whether we liked it or not, that's one thing. Whether it was in the minutes, reflecting upon what we had, that's the question we're determining right now. I saw those words on those documents. We did see them. They were in the meeting. I don't think you can go back and change it. That's my point of order. We're discussing the minutes. We're not discussing
I'm saying the wording is
views.
prejudicial and needs to be changed. That is my point. Any reference to commitment should be struck from the minutes.
Okay, so I'll just let Councillor Richter continue.
Thank you. And so, as I say, the word commitment needs to be struck from these minutes in particular, and I struck off the distribution of this package in the public because I'm very concerned that it's going to be waved in our faces in the next election, and that's not fair.
I do have a question to staff. Has this word commitment been in the language before? Is this new?
I think the language has existed before, and in part, I think it stems from the sustainability and vision and goals, which makes reference to leading by committing the community to include. I don't think that, however, was the point. I think the point simply was that given what was being heard and the uncertain nature of, I guess, the deliberations of council, it may be premature to have the word commitment in there, and I believe there was a mover at least to remove commitment from the minutes. So we're at the stage.
Okay, so it's been seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Long.
Well, unfortunately, I asked staff if they would put a copy of the sustainability visions and goals on our table. That was established many, many years ago by council. And in the very, very beginning of the statement, it says, by leading and committing the community to such and such and such. So the word committing is very much part of what we do. And I don't understand, Madam Chair, I know you've allowed the motion to be made, but how can you go back and change something that actually happened? Those were the words that were used. That's what we discussed. That's what the minutes needs to reflect. So I'm not in favor at all of changing it.
Oh, Councillor Richter.
Yes, thank you. Well, the vision says committing the community to a lifestyle that is socially, culturally, economically, and environmentally balanced. The wording in this budget is commitment to provide infrastructure, commitment to maintain assets, commitment to protect protective services. Like, that's presupposing a budget decision. And that's why I find the wording not acceptable. And it doesn't relate to the sustainability vision, or in my opinion, at all.
Okay. Oh, do you have any? Oh, Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I appreciate the sentiments of the mover of the motion on the terms being used, and I guess it's possible that some of these things can be used politically. In fact, it already began when some people didn't support the motion that those things showed up on Facebook as people that aren't interested in seeing taxes lowered. So I can understand how political things happen pretty quick. I guess I wish that this would have been brought up when we discussed it last meeting, because the challenge is that minutes are a record of what actually happened. And the votes that we took, the amendments that we made, were all based on the wording that was there. And so, I also appreciate Councillor Long's comments that really minutes are a record of what happened. And what did happen was that we voted and we made amendments and we had some decisions made using this exact wording. So to go back and decide that we don't like the wording and to change the wording, it seems a bit awkward. I don't think we would normally allow ourselves to do that when it comes to minutes. So I'm kind of caught, because I feel like I can understand the concern, but I wish it would have been mentioned prior to us actually having conversations, making motions and amendments and voting on that exact wording. So because, possibly, I don't know, but possibly now then the motions and the amendments actually don't make a lot of sense. If we just change the wording, we'd almost have to go back and relook at all the motions and amendments with new wording. So I'm a bit caught here on what the purpose of minutes are. They're actually a record of what happened, and I think these are accurate to what happened at the time.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. I do have Councillor Richter. It's lit up, but I don't know if that's from.
It's still turned on.
Okay.
But
all right.
yeah.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions. So I'll call the question on the motion. Oh, on the amendment. Okay, to the amendment on the amendment to the minutes. Okay. Oh, sorry. And what would the item be?
I don't know what the exact amendment is.
B2.
Item
B2. Okay. Okay. So I'm call the question. It's a tie. So it fails with Councillor Davis, Councillor Long, Councillor Arneson, and Councillor Kuntz opposed. I thought I was actually voting for something different. Yeah, can we try that over again? Because I'm not supporting the amendment.
That's right.
So then I'm, it's right? Okay.
So you're right.
Okay, all right.
Voted correctly.
Okay. Okay, yes. On that, right. Okay, so it's B2 again, right? Okay. Sorry. And it passes. Okay. Should we try that one more time? B2. We're now voting on just accepting the minutes. We're redoing it, I believe. Yeah, because it didn't look like. Okay. And it passes with Councillor Richter opposed. Okay. So now we need a motion to move into special close. Do I have a motion? Councillor Long, seconded by Councillor Davis. Call the question. Oh, okay, right.
No, just to clarify before we take any changes, this is to advance to the special closed for the items on the agenda and those on table.
Right, thank you. Okay. And Councillor Richter?
I have 3 legal items.
Okay.
Okay, call the question. All in favor? Okay. Show of hands. All right, thank you.
D1 until February 10th. Is that the idea, Mr. Bracken?
If that's amenable to the,
If it's amenable, I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. So motion to adjourn now?
then we'll adjourn to 7 p.m. and then finish the rest of it.
Okay, so Councillor Long moved it. Who seconded it?
I'll second it.
Councillor Woodward, all in favor?
See you later.
And that passes unanimously. Good evening. I would like to call or reconvene the regular afternoon meeting, and I don't believe I need a motion. So we will just carry on. So first thing on the agenda, we have no reports to council, so we'll start with F1 0203128 Canada, British Columbia, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Infrastructure Environmental Quality Substream. Do I have a motion? Councillor Long, seconded by Councillor Arneson. Any discussion? Councillor Richter?
Yes, I was just wondering if there are any other eligible programs, because a 73% rebate is kind of nice.
Councillor, or Mr. Backen? Or Mr. Safi?
Duffy.
Madam Chair, thank you. We do keep an eye on grant opportunities, and we do have staff to ensure that we take good advantage of whatever opportunities we have and make applications. So we'll follow that up.
Okay, I don't see any other discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? Oh, hang on. Let me just get my little voting thing up and running. Okay, F1. Oh. And it passes unanimously. F2 0203129 Development Variance Permit Application Number 100101 Fraser Health Authority 22051 Fraser Highway. Do I have a motion? Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Whitmarsh. Any discussion?
So, Madam Chair, we understand the intent of the mover to be actually approve, as Councillor Long suggested, not to consider.
Call the question? Oh, discussion. Councillor Richter.
Yes, I'm concerned where overflow parking will go. If they are not required to have these additional stalls, are we going to end up with increased parking on the roads around the hospital as well as across Fraser Highway at the Blair Pool and School District number 35?
Madam Chair, the request is not to not comply, but rather to defer the requirements to another future stage down the road. The financial challenges that the Fraser Health Department is facing right now is leading to this request of council, such that they can direct their funding that's available to other healthcare related needs.
Okay, so they will be building 121 additional stalls, or just not building it as part of this phase? Is that what you're saying?
Thank you for the clarification, Councillor Richter, through you to Madam Chair. What I said was that they plan to comply with our requirements. Now, that could change because part of the report that's in front of Council is recommending, or at least advising Council of, is that staff is currently in the process of updating our zoning bylaw requirements with respect to hospitals in particular, as distinguished from other institutional uses, to make sure that our bylaws are actually providing a reasonable and practical requirement as opposed to something that may not fit. So we do have a consultant that's been engaged to take a look at what other jurisdictions, Abbotsford, Surrey, Vancouver, etc., are doing with respect to hospitals. So it may not be exactly 121, it may be something more or less, but we do have a commitment from the Fraser Health that they will comply with our requirements at a future date.
Okay, so if we vote against this, because I'm really worried about taking necessary parking out, is this going to stop the project from proceeding?
We have been advised that they cannot comply with the requirements unless the financial or the funding available is not being used for other health service provision purposes. So they will have to redirect those costs, those funds to the provision of parking, which they would rather not do, and the request has been made of Council.
Thank you.
Councillor Arneson?
Yes. Turn on my microphone. Thank you. Through you, Chair, to staff, I'm wondering whether or not we have any really good sense of, I understand what is being stated in the report, that this is more or less a deferral of a capital project because the hospital would prefer to use the funds for another purpose at this time. My concern in doing this is that do we know what the longer-term phased redevelopment of the hospital site is going to look like? Because in more or less kicking this down the road, I do have some concern if we don't have a identified plan in some way to accommodate this necessary parking. For example, if the hospital became a regional center and we didn't have as a component of the site design that included in it, that we could preclude ourselves from having that as an option later on. So I just want to know if we have any clear sense of what the time frame and the overall redevelopment of the site might look like.
Madam Chair, with your permission, the hospital or the Fraser Health Authority themselves are not necessarily aware of what the next phase might entail. While they do have a ultimate plan, if you will, there is an overall plan for the entire site, which includes many different aspects. The site has not been built out to its ultimate potential, so there are plans for other health-related services buildings towards Fraser Highway, closer to Fraser Highway, as well as the other portions of the site, east, north, west, and south. As far as the actual next phase is concerned, we don't have a definitive plan from Fraser Health as to what that might be. Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on some of those questions, if I may, to staff. Mr. Sefi, if you could confirm, I recall that the development variance permit request to not add these additional parking, we were going to get that report from the consultant first and determine our requirements and then evaluate whether or not to remove that condition. Is there some reason that we have to do this now and can't get that report and consider our requirements prior to removing this condition?
Thank you for the question. Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Woodward, the hospital has, or the Fraser Health people have advised us that the plans to procure the works are fairly imminent, or at least they need to make a decision to allow them to move forward. So hence the reason for this request at this stage, as opposed to waiting for the outcome of another process.
So, and then this is maybe on the legal side, if we've granted a development permit to proceed with, not a development permit, but a permit to proceed with the ER expansion, we remove the requirement for the parking and then try to come back later and, as you said earlier, comply with the requirements. What would be the legal mechanism to do that, to ensure that they would comply with whatever requirements we have later on?
Thank you again for the question, Madam Chair. The requirements are being triggered through building permit applications. So as part of our building permit process, we make sure that any project is in compliance with our zoning bylaw, in fact, with all of our bylaws, and zoning requirements in terms of does it meet the land use provisions, do they have the ability to provide the parking that's required, access, egress, all those kinds of issues are addressed at building permit stage. And as part of that process was when we collectively with the proponents determined that they were not able to meet all the requirements, and as such they applied and made a request to council for a variance to allow them to proceed to the building permit stage. So the building permit stage does allow us the legal ability, give us the legal ability to require parking or make sure the parking requirements are being met.
So if they've been issued a building permit already, with this condition of the additional parking somewhere else, we remove that condition, wouldn't they already have that building permit? Isn't there some challenge with going back later, trying to negotiate the additional provision of additional parking? If we remove this, I think fully understand how we would have the process to do that if wouldn't they essentially have a grandfathered building permit?
I don't believe so. We haven't specifically asked a question from legal counsel, but at any point when a building permit is necessary, and as discussed earlier, we do expect there will be many more building permit applications made by Fraser Health. We do have the ability to ask for compliance with zoning bylaw requirements, and in fact, there have been historic, I'm looking to Mr. Richardson to confirm, memorandums of understanding with Fraser Health to sort of provide us with the added assurance and comfort that they do plan to comply with our bylaws. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on from that to my second set of questions regarding the fact that most of the parking being provided is actually not being provided by Fraser Health. Would it be fair to say it's being provided by the Langley Memorial Hospital Foundation? The way it was summarized in the report, of the 1,029 parking stalls, 710 are provided by the foundation, which is about 70%. Do you know if we've confirmed with the foundation that they're aware that the rationale from Fraser Health is essentially the usage of someone else's property?
Yes, they are aware, and sometimes, I don't know if we have done that in this particular case with this report, but sometimes staff inadvertently provide, I guess, or refer to hospital when they mean Fraser Health, and vice versa, intermittently in terms of, I guess, seeing all the health-related bodies, agencies as being one, including Langley Memorial Hospital Foundation.
Yeah, I think that I might have a little bit of awareness of this, having served on that board for a number of years. So I was a little concerned to read on page 8 of the parking study memorandum provided by Fraser Health, and I quote, "The on-site parking supply is highly dependent on the foundation parking lot, which is not expected to be redeveloped in a way that impacts its existing parking supply." Now, I'm not going to start suggesting that Fraser Health may not be stating facts, but it's a bit of a concern because the foundation may have changed, but there was some confidential discussions about the future of that property, which involved not necessarily providing it to Fraser Health indefinitely. So I was a little concerned again on page 9, if the foundation parking lot is ever going to be redeveloped in a way that impacts its existing parking supply, the impacted parking spaces should be relocated to another location on site, and Fraser Health Authority should include parking costs into the business case. So I'm a little concerned that if the Langley Memorial Hospital Foundation may not have fully agreed to this, and there was nothing in the report that suggested that they were fully aware that it would be up to them potentially to provide a business case to redevelop their own property, and that it feels like we're allowing a proponent to use someone else's property to meet the parking requirements, which the private sector would certainly never be allowed to do without a significant variance. So is there any way to get comfort here that the foundation, without something in writing in the report, is kind of aware of what Fraser Health's rationale is?
Historically, staff is of understanding that there has been agreements between the Fraser Health and Langley Memorial Hospital Foundation as far as the use of the property for parking purposes. And I believe that was, at least my understanding was, that was based on a long-term lease agreement. Mr. Richardson, can...
Thank you, Mr. Safi. That's correct in terms of a legal document of understanding between the parties allocating those stalls to the hospital. And also, given the timeliness of the matter, the most recent meetings the staff have had with the Fraser Health Authority have also included representatives for the foundation.
All right, so I'm gonna accept that with the understanding that we have some ability in the future to revisit this with future building permits if in fact the foundation may have some future issues with redevelopment of their lot, and accept the fact that they've been involved in the process and that that's been vetted. Thanks.
Councillor Long?
Yeah, thanks. I think the key for me is on the final page of the report where it states under policy considerations that the applicant has indicated that the next phase of expansion will address the parking requirements of the zoning bylaw in place at the time of expansion. So we're granting a variance, but in the report it says that they're going to take care of it at the next phase of their expansion. So could we put that in the wording up front so that that's clear rather than sort of at the back of the report? So I was wondering if we could modify, because we have to modify it as it is, because it's not that we are considering anymore, right? We're actually making the motion. Where are we now? The motion is not to consider, but to approve, right? Can we also add that that the proponent address the parking requirements of the next phase of expansion, so that it's right up front as a proviso? Maybe staff could advise, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure I follow the recommendation from Councillor Long, because the recommendation is for the removal of that requirement from the previously issued development variance permit. Now, is the suggestion for that removal to be subject to acceptance by the Fraser Health that the parking requirements will be provided at a future date?
Well, that's what I understand from the report. That's what they're saying, that they're saying, well, not to worry, remove this requirement now because we're going to address it on the next phase of expansion. Although you said earlier we don't know when that is or what it is. So I'm just wondering if it would be not wise to add those words in the recommendation so that it's not forgotten. It wouldn't affect it, would it? And it would give us some certainty that we're simply providing this variance because we know that the next phase of expansion is going to provide those 151 parking spaces.
Madam Chair, there's no concern from staff in terms of adding language to the effect that this would be subject to Fraser Health providing the adequate level of parking in compliance with our zoning bylaw requirements at a future date as part of a subsequent building permit application.
Excellent. So I'll make that amendment if that's allowed.
Okay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arneson, any discussion on the amendment?
You need some wording for that, or you've got that figured out?
Do we have the wording?
That the proponent address the parking requirements at the next phase of expansion.
Right.
Okay, so I'll call the question on the amendment. Do I have to add that as a, is that B, hang on, F1, right?
F2.
F2. Okay, I'll call the question on F2. And it passes unanimously. So do we go back to the original
Motion is
main
amended.
motion? Okay.
The motion is amended.
So the motion as amended, to call the question or any discussion on that? Okay, call the question. 1 sec. And it passes unanimously. So we go on to correspondence. So we have one piece, correspondence with the clerk's note to approve this request to canvass for the annual daffodil campaign. May I have a motion?
Move receipt and grant permission to
Seconded by Councillor Whitmarsh. Any discussion? Call the question on G. Passes unanimously. So now we go to H. So we have 3 sets of minutes here. May I have a motion to receive minutes H1, H2, H3, moved by Councillor. Oh,
Councillor Kuntz, it's just
Okay.
the Heritage Advisory Committee meetings that we're needing a motion to receive.
So
H1.
So what we'll need is 3 different motions, one
Okay.
to receive, then one for the first recommendation, and one for the second.
okay. So a motion
I'd like
to.
to divide receipt, though.
Right. We have someone that does.
So just to,
Go for it.
just to clarify, Mr. Backus, you can assist us through this process. I'll be declaring a conflict of interest on H3, so I don't want to receive those.
Is there something in the minutes themselves, though? There's a recommendation, I can understand the conflict in, but is there a
I'm getting a little more paranoid these days about that kind of thing, so I'll leave it to your discretion if I can accept receipt.
in that case, I'd always err on the side of caution
Correct.
and suggest a conflict in the situation until we have more understanding.
No, not all 3, Councillor Long. But you can always declare the conflict for me if you wish.
So my position would be, if you're in doubt, declare the conflict even as to the receipt of the minutes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we just start with H1. Can I get a motion to receive? Okay, and seconded by Councillor Arneson. Call the question.
And is Councillor Woodward going to vote or declare a conflict on the receipt of the minutes?
No, of H1.
I thought we were doing each one individually.
Okay, sorry, I stand corrected. Thank you.
Okay, so calling question on H1. And it carries unanimously. So now we'll go to H2. Do I have a motion to receive the minutes on H2? Councillor Long. And seconded by, Councillor Davis. Okay, so any discussion? Call the question on H2. Passes unanimously.
My mic on again, please. So just, Madam Clerk, I'll be declaring a conflict of interest, and again, in assisting with the nature of the conflict, I'll declare that as well. The appointment of these individuals potentially review development applications, of which I'm a part. Thanks.
So, Madam Chair, I'll move the endorsement of the items as shown in H3.
Do I have a seconder? Oh, Councillor Arneson. I'll call the question. Oh, sorry, discussion. One sec, I have to go back.
Yes, this is just a question, Madam Speaker, to the staff. It says here the 2020-22 term. Is that because these are 2-year appointments?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Long.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Call the question on H3. And it carries unanimously. Could someone go find Mr. Councillor Woodward?
Tried to call me.
So now we move on to other business. Councillor Richter?
Yes, so I'll move the motion that therefore be it resolved, the council requests staff to include a recommendation as part of the 2020 housing needs assessment on an appropriate secondary suite size to meet the defined.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
I'd like to just reference it. Tonight, council has a bylaw in front of it that is keeping, for now, the size of secondary suites to the 90 square meters in the absence of or in the presence of changes to the building code. And I agree with that, but I also think that the feedback that council has received, both in letters and in delegations, et cetera, suggests quite strongly that we need to look at changing this and increasing it to allow for a broader range of housing options. So as we do have the housing needs assessment in play right now, and council is anticipated to be getting a follow-up report from staff on that in the fall, that would be the appropriate place to make a recommendation on whether or not 90 square meters is sufficient or if it needs to be increased. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Councillor Richter bringing this to attention. We've had correspondence and delegations regarding this. I think it's a move in the right direction, a changing economy, and also the need and demand for housing. I'm not sure what that magic number now. Perhaps the staff will give us a couple of options, 2 or 3 options, but it's certainly going to be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Woodward.
I just wanted to clarify with the mover, is the intent to have this recommendation come as part of that with the bylaw on the evening meeting being basically put in place, to put the 90 in place and then get a recommendation to explore the 90? So you would be supporting the 90 in the evening meeting?
Yeah, thanks. I'm supporting the 90, but just until we've had a review of it as part of the housing needs assessment, and I'm anticipating, as staff have suggested, that a subsequent change to the bylaw that we're approving tonight could come forward after that needs assessment to change the size that's prescribed in the bylaw right now.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify the second thing. Housing needs assessment on an appropriate secondary suite size. Now, do you mean to have included maximum size within this, or are you looking for a range of size, appropriate suite size?
I think the feedback we got is there's need for not just 1-bedroom suites, but 2-bedroom secondary suites, possibly even 3-bedroom secondary suites, although I think 3-bedroom secondary suites could be getting a bit on the high side. But I just thought, as we've got experts reviewing it, that's a question that maybe they could answer for us as well.
Okay, so I want to clarify one more thing with the mover on just before I can see. So there would be no incompatibility with your motion to put in place at the evening meeting a higher maximum size than the 90 in the interim while this review goes on.
Yeah, you could probably do that. I probably wouldn't support it because I thought staff was quite clear that until such time as we get a proper review done, we'd just be picking numbers out of the hat, which would mean that staff would have applications in process of various different sizes that may not work well in conjunction with the review that's being done as part of the needs assessment.
Okay, so I appreciate those clarifications. So for me, I'm going to support this because I think if the 90 is not approved and we don't have a restriction, this review is good to try to consider one. If the 90 is increased, then we can have this review as a motion of council to look at changing whatever number we come up with. My opinion, which we'll get to in the evening meeting, is the 90 square meters is picked out of the air, out of a hat. So maybe we could look at picking a different number out of the hat on the evening meeting. Thanks.
So seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question on is it I1?
Correct.
Okay. And it passes unanimously. Okay, so moving on to termination. Oh, I was a little ahead of myself. Other business. I thought that was other business. Anyway, okay, other business. Any business. Councillor Richter.
I would like to bring item number 7 on the January 23rd distribution list, page 11, forward, and I'm wondering if there's any anticipated impact on TOL as a result of this news release from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing on tax relief for small businesses. Also, the item number 8 on page 13, the value and necessity of it white paper. I'm wondering if council could please get a presentation on that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay. Oh, hang on. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I'd like to refer item number 9 on the distribution list. This is on the Uber topic to staff, just to give us maybe an update at an upcoming meeting on where we sit in terms of Uber and what that would look like for us to move forward in Uber with the Township of Langley. Thank you.
Okay. No other business. Motion. Oh, Councillor Long.
If everyone's got one, I'll need one too here, and that's item number 12 on the same distribution list, which is January the 23rd. If that can be referred to staff along with other comments that have been received regarding 24th Avenue. It's kind of
Councillor Davis, can you please terminate this meeting? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, so now I guess we have to move right into the evening meeting. Is that correct? Or do we have a few minutes?